Have you ever heard anything about ultra-processed foods? Do you know what are the differences between ultra-processed and normal processed foods? If you've had one of these questions, or if you've heard these names, wait till the end and watch this video, because it's made for you. Welcome to our channel. In this video, we want to get familiar with ultra-processed foods. Moreover, we will check the unbelievable effects and damages of ultra-processed food on the brain. And we will give you 5 shocking facts which you may not know. We'll also learn how to recognize ultra-processed foods and cut them down from our meals. So stay with us till the end. First of all, let's get familiar with ultra-processed foods. This name is given to those foods which lose most of their natural ingredients and gain considerable amounts of salt, sugar, additives, and artificial color. To know the differences between processed and ultra-processed foods, we have to know a system known as NOVA, which classifies food into 3 categories. First category, unprocessed or low-processed foods such as vegetables, fruits, and milk. Second category, foods which are condensed, grinded, or purified, like butter and cheese. We count these foods as moderately processed. Third category, highly processed foods like canned foods, sausages, and most foods that we keep in bottles and jars. In conclusion, processed foods go through simple processes ranging from cooking, freezing, and canning, while ultra-processed foods go through complicated stages which change their nutritional value completely. Another point to mention is that we might think only foods which contain a high amount of sugar, fat, and salt are harmful. However, NOVA says ultra-processed foods can have low amount of these ingredients. But surprisingly, they can be more harmful for our body. As a result, NOVA can change our ideas about foods completely. Now let's check the impacts that ultra-processed foods have on our brain. The endocrine or hormonal system job is to control our body functions. Most of the hormones are secreted from the brain. If something interrupts hormone secretion, it will interrupt our body functions as well. When we consume ultra-processed foods which have attractive colors, our brain secretes dopamine. This hormone is responsible for making happiness. So when we eat ultra-processed foods, we're happier than before. Our brain tends to keep this sense of joy, so it orders us to eat more of these foods. This is like what happens when someone is addicted to drugs and alcohol. The dopamine disappears in the blood quickly, so after a short time of eating ultra-processed food, we will be sad and tired. This is because our body experiences a low level of dopamine. The levels of leptin and insulin, 2 important hormones, change too, so our body isn't able to work properly. Additives and artificial colors in processed food have negative impacts on our brain. Here we check 3 of them. Number 1, problems in cognitive part of the brain like attention deficit problems and fatigue. Number 2, high risk of depression and anxiety. Number 3, high risk of amnesia and Parkinson due to the damages that occur in neurotransmitters, which are responsible for transforming signals to different parts of the body. It is good to know that in developed countries like the USA, England, and Australia, processed foods make up 80% of people's diets. According to reliable researches, in people who consume processed foods a lot, neurojunctions will change. These changes will decrease the activity of conscious and unconscious parts of the brain. These effects will be more serious in elders and kids, because their brain is growing or changing every day. These are the only impacts after eating processed foods for a month. Now imagine what will happen to your brain if you eat these types of foods for a long time. Based on research, if you change your lifestyle and eat healthy foods, these impacts will disappear. But if you continue eating processed food, more problems will appear in your body. Even if you stop eating processed food, some negative impacts will remain in your body for a long time. I'm sure that you sometimes ask yourself how we feel full. After eating our meal, our brain receives a hormone called leptin. This hormone stops secreting hunger hormone known as ghrelin, and after a while we stop eating. This process takes time. When we consume processed food, we interrupt this process and become overweight. You might ask how. Ultra-processed foods are easier to eat because of all their ingredients. As a result, we consume a large amount of them in a short time. But leptin has not been secreted yet, and we don't feel full. We keep eating more than we need until leptin is secreted. However, this amount of extra food that we have consumed results in overweightedness, high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, and heart disease in long term. Ultra-processed foods affect bacterium that live in the intestine and disturb their reproduction, and finally contribute to intestinal inflammation. Now let's move on to 7 attractive facts that I bet you would like to know. Number 1. Producing ultra-processed foods in factories started in 1950. Number 2. Companies and factories which manufacture these types of food have interesting methods for selling and producing. For instance, they conduct biological and psychological research to find how to stimulate different parts of the brain. They pay a large amount of money for this research. Number 3. Developed countries like the USA consume more processed foods than other countries. Number 4. Producers use various artificial colors to make these foods look attractive. Number 5. Currently, factories think of 3D printing as a way of advertising. Number 6. The price of unprocessed foods is lower in Western and deprived societies, and people in these societies tend to buy these foods more than others. Number 7. One point which may surprise you is that there are foods which look healthy, but they're actually classified as ultra-processed foods category. We can refer to fruit snacks, granola, and protein bars. Now let's check the impacts of ultra-processed foods on the environment. As we mentioned before, ultra-processed foods go through different stages, which change their nature. These stages are the first factor in adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, and the second factor is destroying biodiversity. They increase greenhouse gas in the air as they have to be transported by big engines like lorries. They affect groundwater resources. They also contribute to soil erosion as they need vast lands to be cultivated or produced. Besides, the packages of ultra-processed foods are made from plastic and metals, and when you put them away, they pollute the environment and destroy animal shelters. Now that you know more about terrible effects of ultra-processed foods, it's better to learn how to decrease consuming them. You can start by making a list of what you eat during the day. If you have lots of ultra-processed foods on your list, you have to do something. For example, you can use healthier foods like vegetables and fruits and cook yourself. If this video was helpful, like it please, share this video with your friends and family, and inform them about the impacts of processed foods. Leave a comment for us if you have more information about these foods. Eat healthy and stay healthy, because we reflect ourselves by what we eat. Thanks a bunch for being with us until the end.